I never thought I would find myself sharing this story, delving deep into the recesses of my mind. My name is Rachel and I am 31 years old. Until 6 months ago, I believed my life was perfect. I have been married to Liam, a successful architect, for 8 years. We lived what most would consider an ideal existence. A spacious home in a leafy neighborhood, flourishing careers, and plans to start a family soon. But as life often does, this took me by surprise. It all started when Liam decided it was time for a renovation. "Our porch will be perfect for summer parties," he said, flashing that smile that had captivated me years ago. Naturally, I agreed. Who wouldn't want a stylish, newly designed porch? Liam hired a local construction company, and that's when I met Joseph. Joseph, at 21, was the epitome of youth and vitality. He was tall, with broad shoulders, unruly brown hair, and striking hazel eyes that seemed to hold a mysterious allure. When he smiled and extended his hand in greeting, I felt a spark I hadn't felt in years. A flutter in my stomach, a tremor in my legs. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," he said, his deep voice rumbling in my ears. "I'm Joseph, and I'll be leading your renovation team." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. "It's my pleasure, Joseph. Please call me Rachel." In the days that followed, I tried to distance myself, burying myself in my work as an editor at a fashion magazine. But it was impossible to ignore the constant noise of the renovation, the hammering, the laughter of the workers, and most of all, Joseph's voice as he led his team. A week into the project, Liam had to leave on business. "It's only 2 weeks, my love," he assured me with a soft kiss. "Take care of the house and keep an eye on the renovation, okay?" I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief that I wouldn't have to hide my growing attraction to Joseph, and guilt that I felt this way. The day after Liam left, I decided to bring lunch to the workers. "It's the least I can do," I told myself, though I couldn't ignore the underlying reasons. I walked out onto the balcony with a tray of sandwiches and juice, only to find Joseph standing alone, measuring something with a tape measure. He turned when he heard me, and his face lit up with a smile that made my heart race. "Rachel, you're so kind," he said, coming over to me. "It's nothing," I replied, setting the tray down on a makeshift table. "Where are the others?" "They went to get more supplies," he explained, picking up a sandwich. "It's just you and me for now." My heart raced at his words. We sat there, chatting about inconsequential things as he ate. Joseph shared his passion for carpentry, passed down from his grandfather, and his dream of one day owning an interior design business. Then he turned to me, his hazel eyes fixed on mine, and asked, "What about you, Rachel? What's your dream?" His question caught me off guard. When was the last time someone asked me about my dreams? When was the last time I thought about them? "I don't know," I admitted, suddenly feeling vulnerable. "I guess I lost track of them along the way." Joseph stepped closer, his hand lightly brushing my arm. "It's never too late to rediscover yourself," he said softly. In that moment, looking into Joseph's eyes, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Part of me wanted to retreat, to return to the safety of the life I knew. But another part of me, a part one had suppressed for years, wanted to leap into the unknown. The sound of a car pulling up outside shattered the moment. Joseph quickly stepped back, and I went back inside, my heart pounding. That night, I lay alone in bed, the bed I shared with Liam, unable to sleep. My mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. I loved my husband, that much I was certain of. But was I still in love with him? And what did this attraction to Joseph mean? Was it just a passing infatuation? Or did it signify something deeper, something missing from my life? I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over Liam's name in the contact list. I wanted to call him, confess my confusion, but what would I say? "Hello, my love. I'm calling to tell you that I've been having inappropriate thoughts about the handsome carpenter you hired." I laughed bitterly at the thought of confessing everything to Liam and put my phone back on the nightstand. No, I couldn't tell him, at least not yet. First, I needed to figure out what was happening to me. In the days that followed, I lived through sweet torture. Every interaction with Joseph was fraught with unresolved sexual tension. Our eyes met more frequently, and our conversations became increasingly personal. I learned that he had a difficult childhood, being raised by an aunt after losing his parents in an accident. He also learned of my passion for photography, a dream I had abandoned in favor of a more stable career. One afternoon, as I watched Joseph work, he surprised me. He caught me looking at him, and instead of looking away, he gave me a slow, seductive smile that made my stomach do somersaults. "Do you like what you see?" he asked in a low, husky voice. I felt my face heat up. "I was just admiring your work," I stammered, knowing it was a transparent lie. Joseph laughed, a rich, deep sound that rumbled in my chest. "Sure," he said, winking at me before turning back to work. That night I made a decision. I couldn't go on like this. The tension was eating away at me, affecting my work, my sleep, my peace of mind. I had to work this out one way or another. The next day, I woke up early, determined to have a serious talk with Joseph. I decided to be honest about my feelings, but I would make it clear that nothing could happen between us. I loved Liam, and I wasn't going to throw away years of marriage over a passing fancy. I walked out onto the porch, my heart pounding in my chest. Joseph was already there, working alone again. "Joseph," I called, my voice shaking slightly. "Can we talk?" He turned, his face serious as he caught my expression. "Sure, Rachel. What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, gathering my courage, but before I could answer, the sound of a car horn interrupted us. We turned to see a familiar car pulling up to the driveway. Liam was back. My heart skipped a beat when I saw him get out of the car. He looked tired, but he smiled when he saw me. Joseph and I instinctively pulled away from each other, as if we were each guilty of something that hadn't happened yet. "Surprise!" Liam exclaimed, approaching with his suitcase. I managed to finish the project early and decided to head home. I forced a smile, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions that consumed me. "That's great, honey. I missed you so much." I hugged Liam, feeling a mixture of relief and disappointment. On one hand, his presence interrupted the dangerous moment with Joseph. On the other, I felt frustrated that I hadn't had the chance to clear things up. "And how's the renovation going?" Liam asked. Turning to Joseph, Liam asked, "How's the work going?" "Very good, sir," Joseph replied in a professional, distant voice. "We're a little ahead of schedule, actually." "Excellent," Liam smiled, wrapping his arm around my waist. "Well, I won't get in your way any longer. Let's go inside, Rachel. I need a shower and I'm starving." I nodded, giving Joseph one last look before following Liam into the house. The young carpenter kept his expression neutral, but his eyes told another story. The next few weeks were an exercise in self-control and deception. With Liam home, the opportunities for me to be alone with Joseph had all but disappeared. Still, the tension between us was palpable. We'd exchange furtive glances when Liam wasn't looking. Our hands would brush accidentally when we passed each other. One night, while Liam was working late in the home office, I decided to bring a pitcher of lemonade to Joseph, who was working overtime to finish a detail on the porch. "I thought you were thirsty," I said, handing him a glass. Joseph took the glass, his fingers lingering on mine for a little longer than necessary. "Thank you, Rachel, you're always so thoughtful." We were silent for a moment, the air between us thick with unspoken words. "Rachel," Joseph began, his voice deep and intense, "about that day before your husband came back." "Joseph, please," I interrupted, my heart racing. "We can't." "I know," he said, taking a step toward me. "But I can't stop thinking about you. About us." I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of his body next to mine. "There's no us, Joseph. I'm married. I love my husband." "Are you sure?" he whispered, his hand lightly touching my cheek. At that moment, I heard Liam's voice calling to me from inside the house. I quickly pulled away from Joseph, my heart racing. "Rachel, where are you?" "Outside, love," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just came to see how the porch was coming along." Liam appeared in the doorway, smiling. "That's great, Joseph. I hope my wife doesn't." I'm not getting in the way of your work. Joseph forced a smile. Not at all, sir. Mrs. Rachel has been very helpful. I felt my face heat up at the double meaning of his words. Liam, oblivious to the tension, simply nodded. Well, let's not get in the way anymore. Come on, Rachel. I thought I'd order a pizza tonight. As I followed Liam inside, I felt Joseph's gaze boring into my back. The next few days were a constant test of my willpower. Every time I saw Joseph, my body reacted in a way that scared and excited me at the same time. I tried to focus on my marriage, on Liam, but it was as if a part of me had awakened and refused to go back to sleep. One afternoon, while I was working on an article for the magazine, I got a text on my cell phone. It was from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop on the corner at 3 o'clock. My heart raced. How had Joseph gotten my number? Should I go? Part of me knew it was a terrible idea, but another part of me was looking forward to this meeting. At 2:55 p.m., I walked into the cafe, my heart racing and my anxious eyes searching for Joseph. He was already sitting at a table in the back, 2 cups of coffee in front of him. I didn't think you'd come, he said as I sat down. I shouldn't have, I replied, my voice shaking. Joseph reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Rachel, I know this is complicated, but I've never felt this way about anyone before. I closed my eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. Joseph, please, I'm married. I have a life, commitments. And are you happy? He asked, his eyes fixed on mine. The question took me by surprise. Was I happy? I loved Liam, I was sure of that, but when was the last time I felt truly alive? Before I could answer, I saw a familiar figure walk past the cafe window. My body froze. It was Meg, Liam's best friend. We need to go now, I mumbled, lowering my head. Joseph, sensing my agitation, nodded. We hurried out the back door of the cafe, my heart hammering in my chest. I'm sorry, Joseph said once we were outside. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I shook my head, my emotions getting the better of me. This can't happen again, Joseph, we can't. But before I could finish my sentence, Joseph pulled me into a nearby alley, pressing me against the wall. His lips met mine in a desperate, passionate kiss. For a moment, I was lost in the sensation, all the pent-up desire exploding between us. Then reality hit me like a bucket of cold water. I pushed Joseph away, gasping. This was a mistake, I said in a broken voice. It can't happen again. I ran away, leaving Joseph behind, my mind a whirlwind of guilt, desire, and confusion. When I got home, I found Liam in the living room, a strange expression on his face. Where have you been? He asked, his voice calm but with a tone I didn't recognize. I went for coffee, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I needed some time to think. Liam stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to read my soul. Interesting, he finally said. Meg called me, said she saw you at the coffee shop around the corner, with Joseph. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. The game of appearances was over, and now I would have to face the consequences of my decisions. The silence that followed Liam's statement was deafening. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words felt stuck in my throat. It's not what you think, I finally managed to say, my voice shaking. Liam let out a bitter laugh, a sound I had never heard before. And what exactly am I thinking, Rachel? Why don't you tell me? I felt my legs weaken and leaned against the wall. How could I explain something that I didn't even fully understand? Liam, I made a mistake. Joseph and we. What did you do? Liam interrupted, his voice rising. Are you having an affair? No, I exclaimed, tears starting to fall. It's not an affair, we kissed just once today. Liam closed his eyes, as if my words had physically struck him. When he opened them again, I saw a mix of pain and anger that I had never seen before. Why? He asked, his voice hoarse now, almost a whisper. What did I do wrong? His words hit me like a punch to the gut. You didn't do anything wrong, I replied, taking a step toward him. He backed away, increasing the distance between us. Liam, please listen to me. Love you. It was a moment of weakness. I was feeling, what did you say? Bored. Unfulfilled. God, Rachel, why didn't you talk to me? Guilt consumed me. How could I explain that this wasn't about him, but about me? A part of me I had forgotten or perhaps never even known. I don't know, I admitted, feeling small and pathetic. Joseph made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I realized how cruel they were. Liam staggered as if he'd been slapped. So this is it, he said, his voice thick with pain. 8 years of marriage thrown away because of a boy who makes you feel young again. It's not that. I cried desperately. It's not that, Liam. Please let me explain. But Liam was already moving, grabbing his car keys and wallet. I need some air, he murmured. I don't know when I'll be back. Liam, wait. I tried to reach him, but he had already left. The sound of the car pulling out of the driveway echoed on the silent street. I collapsed on the floor, sobbing. How could I risk everything we had for a moment of passion? Hours passed and I tried to call him, but all the calls went to voicemail. I left messages, begged for forgiveness, but got no answer. Around midnight, I heard a knock on the door. A door. My heart raced, thinking it might be Liam. But when I opened it, I found Joseph on the other side. What are you doing here? I asked, casting a nervous glance at the street behind him. I needed to check on you, he said, his eyes full of concern. I tried calling you, but you didn't answer. You can't be here, I whispered. Closing the door, Joseph stopped her with his foot. Rachel, please, we can't leave things like this. What happened to your husband? I felt a wave of anger wash over me. What happened? He found out about us, Joseph. My marriage is falling apart, and it's all our fault. Joseph stared at me, regret and pain written all over his face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble, but Rachel, what we feel for each other is enough. I yelled, pushing him out. There is no us, Joseph. There never was. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I slammed the door shut, sliding to the floor. Outside, I heard Joseph call my name one last time before his footsteps faded away. The next few hours were a whirlwind of regret and self-criticism. I relived every moment of the past few months, every decision that had led me to this point. How could I have been so selfish, so reckless? As the sun began to rise, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. I ran to the window, my heart pounding, and watched Liam step out of the car. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a slump in his shoulders. I opened the door before he could use the key. We stood there, staring at each other for a long moment, the air thick with unspoken words. Liam, I began, but he held up his hand, cutting me off. Don't say anything yet. I've been thinking all night, Rachel. About us, about our marriage, about everything. I swallowed hard, expecting the worst. I love you, he finally said hoarsely. And I want to believe that you love me too. But what happened? I can't pretend it didn't happen. I know, I said, tears welling up in my eyes again. Liam, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. He nodded slowly. We're going to need help, I say. Couples therapy, maybe. And you're going to have to be completely honest with me about everything. I felt a glimmer of hope. Everything, I repeated. I love you, Liam, more than anything in the world. He stepped forward and hugged me tightly. I felt his tears wet my shoulder as he whispered, We'll get through this together. As we held each other, I knew this was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey. There would be tears, arguments, and moments of doubt. But there, in Liam's arms, I promised myself that I would do everything in my power to rebuild the trust that had been broken. The sun continued to rise over the horizon, marking the beginning of a new day and, hopefully, a new chapter in our lives. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was determined to take it step by step, alongside the man I truly loved.